Okay. Hello, everybody, and welcome. Thank you for joining us today. Welcome to our latest packaging webinar, Sustainable Packaging Innovations. My name's Katie Roselaar. I manage the technical services team here at the ThePackHub. So today we're going to start with a brief introduction and a little bit about the ThePackHub before breaking down some sustainable packaging innovations into two sections. We'll be looking at the innovations themselves, then we'll be speaking to Holmen before we have part two of the innovation. Just to let you know, we obviously find these innovations by searching our innovation zone and our patent zone database platforms. And we've selected some new sustainable packaging developments to share with you. Right on topic, we've got quite a few about paperization today. So later in the session, I'll be joined by Ginny Samuel, Johan Granås, and Jonas Bergström of Holmen Board and Paper for, as you've had a sneak preview of, a special outside broadcast around a Swedish campfire. So looking forward to that. While the Holman team are presenting, I'd encourage you to think of some questions, please, and pop them in the Q&A area, the Q&A box that you'll find at the bottom of the panel. That as opposed to the chat, please, and we will do our best to answer those at the end of the session. We'll finish this session a couple of minutes before the hour, just to give you time to get to your next meetings. The session is being recorded and it will be available on our website from tomorrow, should you want to watch it again or to share it with colleagues. So first of all, a little bit about the ThePackHub. We're a packaging innovation consultancy, and at the heart of our business, we run two membership database platforms. The first one is here shown. It's the Innovation Zone, where we've been collating packaging innovations for around about 10 years. We've got over 10,500 packaging case studies from around the world, covering food, beverage, health and beauty, household, pharmaceutical, and many more. And we upload around 33 new examples each week. So it's a really good way to keep up to date with market developments, discover where the latest innovations are landing, and keeping up to speed with what your competitors are doing. We also have the Patent Zone, which we launched last year, which now includes over 1,400 packaging initiatives. So each month we upload about 100 of the most relevant and interesting patent ideas from around the world, with an article on each of them that includes what it is and then the ThePackHub's view on that particular patent. So a very good way to inspire ideas and innovation within your own business. So without further ado, let's look at some latest sustainable packaging innovations. As always, we recognise and acknowledge the core sustainable packaging trends, and these are recycling and recycled content, bio-based materials, paperisation, refill and reuse systems, and reduction strategies. So obviously all of our sustainable packaging initiatives feature normally actually a combination of these. So it's normally one or more of these different strategies. So first up, we've got the refill stick shampoo packaging, which I thought was really interesting to see. So Amcor, headquartered in Zurich, has partnered with French personal care brand Cut by Fred to develop a refillable shampoo stick, which is entirely monomaterial, it's PP. The new solution replaces a previous refill process that was actually a little more complicated. It involved melting the shampoo in the microwave, transferring it to a pack and refrigerating it, which was quite complex for consumers and was sort of discouraged uptake. So this revised design from Amcor simplifies the process a lot by allowing a pre-molded refill shampoo stick insert to be slotted directly into that original stick pack. So you can see in the image that it's got a sort of molded plastic component on the base. So the design reduces the need for handling, obviously minimises the risk of contamination, and offers a really hygienic, convenient experience. The 75ml container weighs 55 grams, and the refill component of that is just 18 grams of packaging. So it offers significant material savings and cost benefits for consumers. As I say, both components are made of PP, so it's really easily recyclable where systems are in place. The straight sides of the container and cap give a really big printing surface, so it's got great branding flexibility. Next up from P&G, we've got a laser marking solution developed in collaboration with LasX Industries, and it indicates on the cap how much product is able to be dosed. So instead of having injection molded bars giving measuring marks on the cap, actually the laser markings onto the monopolyprop caps indicate how much the user should be dosing. It's capable of reaching really challenging areas on the cap and quick flexibility in custom text and design changes. So you could have the same structure of cap used for several applications that might have different dosing requirements. So really nice use there of laser technology. This next design from DS Smith is one from our patent zone. It's a multiple bottle carrier made from cardboard or paper-based material. In this case, each of the bottles are inserted directly into the card carrier panel, and it's got holes in it so that it can be carried with one hand. The carrier itself folds flat from a single plastic piece, so that would make it very efficient to produce, and obviously it's widely recyclable curbside. So another great example from DS Smith, showcasing how they can replace traditional plastic wrap and components with paperboard. This is a bottle from Spectra Packaging, who have supplied the childcare brand Tea Glue with bottles made from prevented ocean plastic, PET. They're 250ml oval bottles with flip-top caps and have 35% of the prevented ocean plastic post-consumer recycled or PCR content. So the prevented ocean plastic means that it's been intercepted from coastal areas before it enters the ocean. So in this case, this is sourced from East Borneo, Indonesia, through a collection partnership with Danone. The initiative itself forms part of a wider drive to reduce the use of virgin plastic and address plastic pollution in very vulnerable coastal regions. Another paperization example, Smurfit Westrock have launched the Bag-in-Box Power Grip, a fibre-based packaging solution designed to support compliance with the upcoming PPWR targets for 2030. This has been designed to replace a sort of HDPE bottle or jerry can, and it comes in 2 and 5 litre formats. So really well suited to cleaning products or liquids, oils, agrochemicals. Features a built-in handle and a vacuum bag insert that stabilizes the contents during use. What I thought was really interesting is the cubic efficiency that it gains, and this is how it's positioned as supporting the PPWR requirements, that it's limiting the packaging void space and encouraging recyclability. Next, we have a patent from Unilever, who've developed a container concept for quick cooking foods like noodles or rice. So it's aimed at making preparation easier and supporting recycling. The pack has 2 main parts, an inner plastic cup and a paper-based outer sleeve. So initially that outer sleeve acts as insulation whilst you rehydrate the contents. But once you've done that, you can leave it for a few minutes, tear off that outer using a perforated strip, and then turn it upside down, and it creates a shaker, creates a sort of locked internal space to create a shaker. And the little holes that you see in the side can be used as a draining feature. So if you're rehydrating something, then draining off excess water, it can be used that way. One from Rionia Advanced Materials, or RIAM, in Jacksonville, Florida. They've expanded their Kalima folding carton board portfolio with an enhanced freezer grade application. So this is designed specifically for the frozen food sector. And the board has been designed to enhance integrity in the cold chain conditions, so down to about -18 degrees C, really resistant to moisture and delamination without the need for plastic extrusion or any coatings. So offers a really simple and cost efficient, sustainable board option. This is an interesting one from Spain, converting post-consumer polystyrene waste back into food grade packaging. It's a partnership between Coexpan and Eslava Plasticos, and they've developed a mechanical recycling process so it can be used specifically for food grade applications like yogurt pots. So, with over 350,000 tonnes of polystyrene used annually for yogurt packaging, the initiative aims to support a circular economy by keeping the material in a closed food contact loop. The collaboration employs a jointly developed decontamination technology, which is currently undergoing advanced validation to transform used polystyrene into the high quality recycled raw material. Interestingly, they're using an AI assisted separation and purification process. So that's expected to ensure consistency and supply scalability for long-term contracts. Our last one in this section before I hand over to Holmen. Nestlé have developed a lid made from moulded pulp that securely fits over food containers without needing any plastic parts. The lid is built from 2 or more pieces of pulp material, and they fit together to form a complete top. It includes a cover that closes the container and a skirt that wraps around the container rim. Inside the skirt are small locking elements that stick inwards and help hold the lid in place when they're pressed down. The locking parts are spread across different sections of the lid, and they grip the container rim either by fitting tightly or by snapping into place, depending on the design. So it makes it very secure during storage or transport. Interestingly, the pulp material means the whole system can be recyclable or compostable. So this supports sustainable pack designs for food products like snacks, ready meals, or dairy. Although, to be honest, the shape reminds me of another product within the Nestlé portfolio. It's great to see this from Nestlé as they push forward with their sustainability goals. It very much aligns their shift towards paperisation and something that Paul was also speaking about last month in our webinar there. So now I'd like to welcome the Holmen team. Ginny, I think you can now take control and share your slides.
Thank you very much. I'm going to turn my camera off. Just makes it a bit easier, but I will share my screen now.
Great. That looks like that's just warming up and coming into place. Great, we can see those. Thank you.
Thanks, Katie. Hello and welcome, everyone. So I work for Holmen Board and Paper. We're a paper mill. Some of you will know us before as Iggesund. And today, myself, Johan and Jonas I'm going to talk briefly about our products, and then the much more exciting bit, hand you over to the guys in the forest. For those who don't know much about us, we've been going a fair old length of time. We've been growing with nature since 1685, and it started when the Queen of Sweden saw an opportunity for sustainable business in northern forests of Sweden and the rivers, and granted Holmen, or Iggesund as we were then, the right to start up operations. And so we've continued from then to carry on this torch of caring for the environment and never harvesting more than we actually grow. We have 4 divisions, all stemming from the forest. The forest is kind of, it's the concept for us that we want to add value to the forest. So we have our forest. We're the 2nd largest forest owner in Sweden and about 5th in Europe. And about 70% of the land mass in Sweden is covered in forests. Along with that, we have our renewable energy side. Because we have so much area within the forest, we have wind turbines and hydroelectric. from that forest, when you grow a tree, if you cut it into 3 sections, you grow it for the lowest section. That's the valuable bit. That's the wood products that you can see on this list here, because that's for building or for furniture. The middle part, pallets and fence posts, and the top bit has always been a byproduct. And that's our division that you're talking to today that goes into making board and paper. And for us, what are the boards and paper that we make? So talking today about the paper boards. So these are what are the cartons that go into cosmetics, pharmaceuticals, etc. And we have 3 families of them: Invercoat, Incada, and Inverform. And briefly, so Invercoat is our highest quality paperboard, and we tell designers there is limitless designability in this. They can create anything that they can imagine. It's manufactured at our fully integrated mill in the town of Iggesund in Sweden. It's a solid bleach board. All our products are fresh fibres. We don't make recycled boards, we're only fresh fibres. And it gets used in the electronics industry, the food industry, pharma, drinks, and in cosmetics. In the food sector, it's used a lot because of its hygienic. The process of solid bleach board means it's a very hygienic fibres and is taint and odour neutral. Incada, this is our product that we make in the UK in Workington, up in the Lake District. It has very good whiteness, grammage advantage, and again, it's used in food, cosmetics, confectionery, tobacco, book covers, greetings cards, and pharmaceuticals. And the word that most people say when they think of our products, both Invercoat and Incada, is consistency. The last family I'm going to just briefly talk about is our Inverform, which is our newest one. We saw there was a need. Katie's been talking about paperization for a move away from ready meal trays or wherever there's been plastic used for food. And our Invercoat, which has been tweaked to create Inverform, which is a product that has an element of stretch to be able to create these shapes. So again, it's made up in our Iggesund mill in Sweden. It's lightweight yet stable, has a very low carbon footprint, suitable for microwave ovens and freezers. That's it from me at this point. I didn't want to bore you too much with all of this, but my details are here. When Paul sends out the information, he will include this. So reach out to me if there's anything, further questions, or you have some interest in our products. But what I'm going to do now is where it gets much more interesting, is introduce my colleagues Johan and Jonas from the forest, because that's where it all begins for us. So I will stop sharing, hand over.
Can you hear us, guys?
Yes, we can.
Excellent, excellent. Well, welcome everyone to Sweden and to the forest. And as you can see, it's pretty cold out here. You see the smoke coming out of my mouth. So my name is Johan Granås. As Ginny and Katie said, thanks for having us. Thanks for inviting us. We'd like to share a few things up here. We are sitting here talking about my dear partner Jonas here is constantly cold.
Yeah,
you know me, Ginny.
I might just say a couple of words. We tested this twice today, and actually we're getting just a tiny bit of an echo, but it's more that once you're speaking, we can hear it again. So I don't know if you sit a little further apart or...
We'll try to keep it down.
That's perfect.
Yeah, perfect. Very good. Yeah, we'll have to not speak directly to each other and speak to the camera maybe. Does it work now?
Yeah, really well.
Yeah, that's
perfect. Better. Yeah, that's good. That's good. Well, as Johan said, we're sitting here, and you know me, Ginny. I'm always freezing. It's getting a little bit colder here in Sweden. Still no snow, but the fire is helping out here. And I just said to Johan, I can't imagine why my ancestors chose to grow up here in the north. We probably should have been in southern France or something, but here we are. And speaking of cold, Johan, it was ice age here not
long ago, or?
No, and that's something that actually is kind of important when we talk about forestry in general, that to remember that our forests up in Scandinavia, northern parts of Europe, are from a geological sense really young. That is also noticeable in terms of biodiversity, because here, exactly where we were sitting, we were under ice about 10,000 years ago, 9,000 years ago, and the ice coverage here was like a kilometer thick. So we had a massive amount of ice here that basically made like a reboot of this whole nature. So you could say that the Northern European forests, they are 10,000 years or younger, basically. And that is to compare then to the forests of like the Amazon, for example, that is considered to be somewhere between 40 and 50 million years old. And those are not even the oldest forests in the world. Those are the ones that were in Southeast Asia, like in New Guinea, Borneo, those types of areas. And those are considered to be about 200 million years old, which, as I said, of course, there's a huge difference in terms of biodiversity and how long nature have had time to develop new species and new types of ecosystems and so on. Just the amount of plants we have here and animals we have here, there's a dramatic difference compared to like tropical areas between this where we are now. So in terms of, if you look at global protection and global biodiversities, where we really should make an effort is really in the tropical areas and in some of these really older areas. Not to say that we shouldn't do our part here, but from more like a humanities standpoint, I think it's super important that we do that.
But why are we sitting here today, Johan?
Yeah,
In the forest? Why are we in the forest today?
I understand that you want to know that, because bringing you out into the cold like this. Well, we are doing these kinds of seminars has become now regular basis, because we see brand owners, the confusion in the world. If you look at the development in the world as today, is really massive because of where society. Every time when I open my news app in the morning, it's like, what has happened tonight? I think it's crazy how the world is developing, and that's also, of course, is happening into sustainability, and it spills off into packaging as well. Packaging is a key part of society. We're not disconnected from society. We are a part of society, and that for the change, for example, in perception of climate change, and those things, both in terms of legislation and in terms of consumer perception, consumer behavior, is a reason why we are doing these things, trying to keep up as best as we can. And that's what we wanted to share with you guys as well today. A little bit of what we have found in both the research that we are doing and also in our contact with global brand owners across the world. But if we start on the regulation part, on where we are with that, because it feels like almost impossible to get any sense of it. Jonas, can you update us? Where this EUDR, where are we with that?
So you mean when we are confused, we go to our happy place here in the forest? Well, EUDR, I don't know when we started planning this seminar, Ginny, it was a long time ago now. And we talked about it just last week about this seminar. And just since we talked the last time about this, so much has happened in the EUDR just the latest week. And if I'm going to speak about what's the latest news that we have received so far and how we are considering this now, it's the politically that came out in the last week here, that the news that came out now is some of the changes that we have heard lately, is that as opposed to earlier within EUDR, it's not now discussed that only the first operator, the one harvesting the forest or the one placing the material on EU for the first time, should be the ones that are doing the due diligence work and due diligence statement in the system. That has been a big change in the proposal, because this should be said, it's still only a proposal. It's not decided yet, and we hope for get a decision in the coming month. But that is something that they are talking about. It could, or it will, be easier for us as operators, so you guys as operators downstream also, even though there are some unclarities. I come back to that one. If we don't have to do the whole due diligence statements in the IT systems with our own new reference numbers and stuff like that, but we should only pass on reference numbers from the first operator, the one harvesting the forest or the one placing material in the EU market. We should, however, still, as downstream operators, be prepared to verify that we have done a good job when dealing with material that could come from these commodities that are under the UDR law, talking about corrective actions from authorities and things like that. They are also talking now about changes in this legislation in terms of time plan. It was discussed just a couple of weeks ago that it would be a delay for all of us. The latest news from 2 days or yesterday is that the deadline still sticks for bigger companies to the 29th of December this year, while small and micro companies will have a prolongation of 12 months to 30th of December 2026. That is what we're working for. But there are still a lot of questions on this, of course, a lot of things that are still not really clear. How do we, for instance, send the reference number? It said that we don't have to make new reference number, but we should pass on the reference number from the first operator. How should we do that? How can you handle all these reference numbers? That is still not clear. And what if you are an operator? You guys, we're talking to you guys in UK now. If you're going to place products in the EU market, what will be your mandatory steps in the process? Still unclear. So what we are doing in Holmen still is that we are working towards the legislation coming into effect on the 30th of December this year with all the work we can. If I'm to speculate, I still think there will be a prolongation for this also, even though they said that it will start in December and a 6-month grace period for next year. I doubt that we will, or everyone will be able to run this from 30th of December. But until we get a decision from the EU, we will just have to work on what we have. So that's where we are, Johan, on that things. But what is it really? Why are we doing this then on EU? EUDR?
Yeah, well, the basic problem is that, EUDR is designed to protect the world from deforestation. And we in the European community are contributing by buying commodity products from outside of Europe, mainly because there is no deforestation in Europe. But we are buying commodity products like coffee or cacao or soy or palm oil that are being consumed in the European Union. That accounts about 10% of global deforestation, which is a problem. So there is a legit foundation for why this legislation is in place, and that I think is important to remember, regardless of how confusing this is. And this confusion, I think, in general, not obviously not for EUDR, but the confusion in the world right now, where are we, it spills over also to the consumer. So basically, the consumer wants to do right, wants to make a sustainable choice, also when it comes to packaging. And we have seen in studies where the consumer is saying that it's willing to pay a little bit more still today. There was a recent study by McKinsey, the management consulting group, that was published this summer that showed that there's still, regardless of the inflation pressure and things like that, there is still a willingness to pay a premium for a more sustainable packaging or sustainable product. And when the consumer rate, but the consumer is a layman. The consumer doesn't know the ins and outs of everything. But when they say a packaging is more sustainable, they mean they have, and that was clear. There was a study by PricewaterhouseCoopers that said it is, if it's perceived to be circular, if the packaging is perceived to be circular. So for you as a brand owner, what you can do and should do in the eyes of the consumer is to make sure it's easy to select what they see is a circular packaging. And circularity, of course, is difficult, but a few things on that is obviously that you should have a renewable raw material. It should be easy to recycle, and if the packaging gets lost, it should not contribute to waste in nature or in the seas or something. So those are like the main things.
No, I was just saying, so you mean that first it should be renewable material, it should be able to recycle in an easy way. If it's not recycled as a product, it should be recycled into some energy or whatever. And if it gets lost in nature, it should be compostable, basically.
And it's not compostable. I mean, like a cosmetic packaging box, a perfume box should not be composted. That's not what we're saying. But in general, I mean, we shouldn't be making things out of forever material, basically. But renewable, I think, is like the renewable raw materials. And then I make a separation between a recycled raw material, like a recycled fossil raw material, in my mind, can never be circular. If it comes from a fossil source from the beginning, regardless if it's been recycled, to me, it's not part of a circular, it's just extending a linear usage. So to me, it's about renewable raw materials. And renewables, that's what we are working with. That's also what we wanted to show you. So I think without further ado, I think we'll take a walk if our cameramen are with us, and we'll take a look at how we are working with our renewable raw materials. Let's see if we can get organized.
Then I stay here and watch the fire, Joanna. And then I meet you.
And
then I meet you
some
guys.
more wood on the fire for you.
And I meet you guys at the end if there are questions.
Yeah. So are you with us? There's always this, you should build in a little bit of tension in these.
The audience are worried that the cameraman has to walk through that lovely fire.
Yeah, well, actually, I stepped over it instead.
Yeah. If you take about 5 minutes to do your walkthrough, does that work?
Absolutely. Well, what we'll do is we'll walk over here and I'll show you the beginning of our processes here. So we are in a harvested area. This area, I'm right in between a more new forest over on this side and a middle-aged forest, which is behind me on this side. And just to stress a couple of the things that Ginny touched on already. So when we are harvesting forests, this is really what we are doing. So if you come over a little bit closer here. So here, this is the stump of one of the trees that was here a while back. It was harvested a few years back. And here you can quite clearly see when we harvest this is not designed for paper making or board making. We are taking out like the biggest part in the center here. That's for sawn timber. So this is designed for this is what we are doing here is we are growing houses, as Ginny, I think, said. We are growing timber that is to become construction wood for houses, for your patio or whatever. The leftover parts, the parts on the edges here and the top of the tree where it's getting too thin, that is used for paper making. And that's important to understand that no tree, this tree here, maybe 80, 90 years old, that was not harvested to become packaging. It was harvested to become a house. And that I think is important to remember. And of course, the very base of sustainable forestry is over here. And we'll go to that as well in just a couple of seconds. So Jonas is here helping us out a bit. So what the actual foundation looks like is something like this. So these are baby plants. These are pine trees, about 1.5 years old pine trees. And these we put in the ground to replace everything you harvest. The law says, and has been saying since 1903, that everything you harvest, you are obliged to replant. So the replanting, and as I said, this is pine tree, and it's all a manual work. You're using this type of tool, the planting bazooka. It has a beak down here that you put down into the ground, like that. And then you put a little plant, and usually it should be a little bit more wet and designed for the right tube as well. And then you open the beak down at the bottom, and now the plant will not fall down. I'll do it by hand, but here you will be, that's what it will look like. So here, this is then going to be harvested in what, 80 years time or something, but our grandchildren, they will be able to harvest this. This is renewable. This is what renewable means. Drilling a larger hole in the ground, pumping more oil up in order to get more plastics is not renewable. This is renewable. This can become a house in 80 years or whatever they want to use it for at that time. So this, I feel, is important to understand. The whole idea on renewable, how it works, and we'll just quickly, we can walk over on this side, just turn around a little bit here. This is what the new forest coming up looks like. So behind me here, I have pine trees. These are pine trees that were planted here after the most recent harvesting. So these are about 6, 7, 8 years, something like that. So the pine trees here, they have been planted here, but the rest, the birch here, the rowan here, that's regenerated by itself, contributing to biodiversity in an area like this. And speaking of biodiversity, I think someone has been, if you come over a little bit closer here, we can take a look at the biodiversity we have in our forest. Here, you see the top of this. This is rowan, as I said. The top of that is not broken off. It's been eaten off by moose. So here, moose has been eating away on rowan and also broken it off like this. So that's the type of biodiversity we have here. So that's like shortly what we wanted to say at this stage. If we switch over to you, Katie, I'm sure there could be questions or comments, and we'll hang on here for a while, and you can come back to us later on with questions. So back to you then, Katie.
Thank you. It's absolutely beautiful. I feel so privileged actually to have a window into your world. And yes, we've got some questions in the chat. So we'll share a few more innovations, but then I'm looking forward to coming back to you and sharing the questions that we have. So thank you very much.
Excellent. Yeah, excellent. Talk soon.
Thank you. So without further ado, I shall keep going through to our second part of packaging innovations for this week. So first up, researchers at Monash University have been developing biodegradable film derived from food waste. From sugars specifically, offering a potential compostable alternative to petroleum-based plastics used in food and agricultural organisations. So the innovation is based on the production of polyhydroxy cyanurates, PHAs, a family of biopolymers synthesized by microbes. So by feeding 2 soil bacteria, a tailored blend of sugars, salts, nutrients, and trace elements, the researchers were able to simulate the bacteria to accumulate natural plastics within their cells. These are then extracted using solvents and cast into really ultra thin films, about 20 microns thick. The films demonstrate similar properties to plastics, traditional plastics, such as stretch strength and thermal stability. And furthermore, by blending PHAs from those two bacteria strains, the team could tailor characteristics like crystallinity and melting point, so they can tailor to various applications. This can be used for rigid packaging through to medical films and other applications in between. Next, from another Swedish company, Meadow, in partnership with the Polish manufacturing company Filzy, they've developed a refillable aluminium packaging solution. Really interesting because it's designed for mass production. So this innovation, called the Meadow capsule, consists of a pre-filled aluminium canister that functions as a cartridge, intended for use with reusable dispensers. So here you see that reusable dispenser on the right-hand side and the capsule on the left. They're targeting sectors such as personal care, food and household products, and the system allows the consumer to replace just the internal part, and the outer durable remains. Of course, the aluminium is recyclable, part of a circular system, and can be recycled many, many times without any loss of quality. One from our patent zone here, another container made from biodegradable and recyclable materials, but this time designed to be really easily separated for better end-of-life processing. So the pack includes a cap, shoulder and base made from biodegradable plastic using injection moulding. And the main body is constructed from waterproof paper. Inside the container is a blow moulded liner, which is made from biodegradable plastic and holds the product and adds barrier protection. The parts are connected in a way that allows them to be detached without damage, making it easier to sort and recycle the materials separately. So the design addresses a common issue in packaging where mixed materials such as plastic and paper are hard to separate in recycling systems. But by making each part compostable or recyclable on its own, means that they can be separated, and that in turn means that the consumer is more likely to separate it. So a really nice, smart way to align with the circular economy targets and demonstrate leadership in sustainable innovation. Next one from EMPA, the Swiss Federal Laboratories for Material Science and Technologies, have developed a biodegradable alternative to conventional printed circuit boards, PCBs, using wood-based materials. Interestingly, several years ago, we used to see more PCBs and light up or musical packaging than we do nowadays. And maybe this gives it a vehicle for brands to be able to do more of that in a sustainable fashion. So this innovation is part of the EU-funded Hype Lignin project and was developed at EMPA's Cellulose and Wood Materials Laboratory in Dubendorf, Switzerland. Traditional PCBs are made from a fibre-based epoxy resin, which is a petroleum-based material that can't be recycled, and normally requires costly disposal methods such as pyrolysis. In contrast, the solution from EMPA uses lignocellulose, a sort of brownish fibrous byproduct remaining after extracting lignin and hemicellulose from the wood. It uses that as the substrate. The process involves mechanically breaking down the fibres into fine fibrils, then compressing and drying them through a method called hornification, which forms a solid compostable material. The residual lignin acts as a natural binder for this. The resulting bio-based board has mechanical properties close to that of conventional epoxy-based PCBs, but remains sensitive to water and humidity, which is an intentional trade-off to ensure that it biodegrades. Again, from the patent zone, another paper-based solution. This time, Nutricia from the Netherlands have developed a pack made from carb-based materials that can store sensitive food products, such as powdered nutrition products, for over 2 years. The pack informs a container with a base and side walls. They're initially sealed with a removable hermetic layer to protect the contents from air and moisture and light. Once the seal's removed, a fibre-based lid allows the container to be opened and reclosed as needed. Importantly, the card used for this is a barrier against light, oxygen, and water vapour, which are really the key causes of product degradation. Interestingly, there was another patent alongside this in the patent zone as well, that looked at making a lid and scoop out of similar materials so they could have a fully paper-based pack. Next, Heidelberg in Germany have partnered with the chemical manufacturer Solensis to develop an industrial process for producing paper-based packaging with functional barrier coatings. The technology aims to replace conventional plastic packaging in applications requiring resistance to moisture, oils, fats, and temperature variations. The new process allows barrier coatings to be applied selectively and precisely to paper webs during the flexographic printing process, using Heidelberg's Boardmaster system. This enables targeted coating and only where the protection is actually needed, which improves material efficiency and reduces production costs. The system integrates Solensis proprietary water-based barrier formulations, which are compatible with recycling and compostable streams, supporting the goals of a circular economy. The collaboration addresses one of the key technical challenges in paper packaging development, achieving a high barrier without compromising recyclability or fibre recovery. We have an innovation from Spain-based Pack to Zero from Terrassa in Catalonia, and they've introduced a digital system that facilitates the use of reusable packaging for food takeaway and delivery. We're seeing a lot more actually of two-dimensional codes being used in packaging, so it's an interesting growth area. This particular initiative eliminates single-use containers by integrating a returnable packaging model supported through an app-based platform. Consumers can register via the Pack to Zero app or use a card with a unique code available from the partner establishments. On ordering the food or receiving the delivery, users can opt to use these Pack to Zero containers, which can be used over 100 times. Interesting to read the stats on this. So according to their data, their cited data, a single-use 1 litre container generates about 15 grams of waste and about 60 grams of CO2 equivalent, whereas a Pack to Zero reusable container of the same capacity produces about 0.6 grams of waste. So that was 15 grams compared to 0.6, and 25 grams of CO2 equivalent across 100 uses. That's about a third of the CO2 equivalent, including preparation for reuse. And that's being adopted in several cities in the Catalan region of Spain. From Spain again, before we come to our last innovation here, BetaPack have designed a lighter neck for bottles and other liquid containers to reduce the material use without affecting strength or performance. So essentially, several tubular sections are attached, which are much smaller in height than others. So it means that material can be carefully taken out of this system, helping brand owners and retailers to hit plastic reduction targets. Finally, for this section, Czech organic ice cream producer Rowito have introduced new recyclable paper-based packaging for their vegan premium ice cream range, which has been developed in collaboration with German packaging manufacturer 1.5. The solution is branded Hazelson and it's made from over 90% paper derived from agricultural byproducts and is fully recyclable within the standard waste paper collection systems. It's designed as an alternative to conventional monoplastic packaging. So this reports a 37% reduction in CO2 emissions compared with plastic equivalents. And very, very cleverly. So it's still maintaining a high barrier technology to ensure moisture and fat resistance and maintaining the quality of those frozen foods. So into our question time now, and I will turn the camera back on if I can do that quickly. And well, firstly, I'll just ask our first question here. So we've been asked, how many trees do you have to plant to make one tree in 80 years? So this listener here is suggesting that not all of those trees are going to make it to an adult tree. So they're curious to understand how many trees you have to plant.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely true. All the trees will not make it because some will be eaten up by moose or others or insects or die from cold or snow or something like that. And also we will we plant them more closer together. So as they grow up, in the forest that you see behind me here, we have taken out a number of trees in order to give the ones that are remaining much more space to thrive. As they grow, the canopy will sort of be intruding. They will not get enough light and so on. So that's why we have to plant a number of more trees. But to put a number on that's to a large extent also a product of the ground that you're on. How fertile is the ground? If it's more fertile, you can plant them a little bit closer together. They'll grow a bit faster. If it's more poor soil, you have to give them more space. The root system needs to expand more than that. But it's absolutely correct that you need to plant a clear excess. If that's 5 or 10 or I'm not entirely sure, but you saw the size of the plant that I was holding, and then you can see the size of like the shadow of the canopy of a big tree. So you can realize that if you plant the seedlings maybe with about 2 meters apart or something, 1.5 meter apart or something, you could probably fit, I don't know, 10 seedlings in the shadow of where there's been one grown tree. But at the end of the day, we are here to regenerate the forest. So it's supposed to look basically the same as it did when it was harvested, when it's again about 100 years. So there is no specific number to that.
I don't remember if you talked about it, Johan, when you were in the forest earlier, but in Holmen, in our company, we are producing 35 to 40 million plants, seedlings per year. And for the rest of Sweden, with all the nurseries in Sweden, it's around 400 million seedlings per year. So there is a lot of plants or seedlings planted every year, absolutely.
Can I add a quick bit to that? There's a variation between where you're growing the trees. So forests grown in the UK that we use for the middle part of our encada take about 40 years to grow because of the Gulf Stream, the nice warm Gulf Stream that we have in the UK. Not that it feels like it today. Whereas the colder, longer winters that they have in Sweden, the same diameter of tree will take 80 years over there, whereas it'll take 40 within the UK.
Yeah.
In Europe.
And as I said before as well, the time is connected to the size that we want in order to produce good sawn timber. If we were to design it, or if we were just to use it for paper making, then we could harvest it much younger. But this time of 80 to 100 years where we are here is to allow it to be a good size or the right size for timber.
Mm. You know, I love how the conversation here is going to jump from the beautiful forest that you're in to the products that I'm then using at home in my kitchen, and which of course is the very nature of your business. So, Ginny, there's a question here that I think is probably for yourself, but the question is, the Invaform trays that you mentioned, the new trays, are they suitable for chiller products. You mentioned microwavable and freezer,
Yes.
and this listener is just asking, sort of in that continuous moisture environment, would they work in that environment?
Yes, they would.
Okay.
Yeah. We have no issue with that. We've got quite a few products being used in the chilled and in the frozen sector. Some of there's hermetically sealed we can do with our products with Invaform, but it depends on the lip. If you've got the tray that I showed there that's got lots of ridges, you can't get a hermetic seal. But if you've got a flat tray that might be a replacement for a sliced ham or something like that, you can get it. So it depends on the application.
Yeah, and actually, if I can add to that, it's used quite a lot for ready-made meals, like chilled ready-made meals, which we spent quite a lot of time in test eating. So I've been involved in quite a lot of that. So we tested Chinese, we tested like French or in Italian and pasta and all of that. So we have it's approved for ready-made meals as well. I can vouch for that.
Yeah. Fantastic. So is there a limit to the shelf life, the sort of number of days that you can get in compatibility with food, or have you never run into that kind of a problem with any of the foods that you've tested?
From what I know, you'd have to do it bespoke to each of the products.
Okay.
So the board is unlikely to be the limiting factor. The process of making chemical pulp makes a very, very stable product. It gets used in archive papers, in other areas. So there isn't really an issue with our material. It just depends what's a requirement of the product that's in it.
Okay. Fantastic. Thank you. Well, I think that represents the last of our questions for today. Only one very straightforward one asking for a link with the replay. So yes, attendees will definitely get that, and that will be live tomorrow. So you can share that with colleagues. Thanks to Ginny Samuel, Jonas Granås and Jonas Bergström of Holmen Board for all the fascinating insights and the tour of the forest. I've learnt a lot actually by being with you today and seeing the forest in person. So really appreciate the live broadcast. As Ginny said, if you've got any questions or comments or want any follow-up, you can email Ginny on the address provided or email myself and I can put you directly in touch. I'd be happy to do that. A quick date for your diaries. Our next webinar is actually on Wednesday, the 26th of November, and that's at the same time as this, which starts at 3 p.m. UK time, and Sampler are our guest for that webinar. So now just to say thanks to all of you who've attended live today and watched this. Thank you for the great questions. And of course, thank you to any of you watching this as a recording. So goodbye from all of us today.